Alright, I have a story for you, so sit a while and listen. This takes place 3 summers ago during a boar hunting trip, down in a very rural area of the Ozark South. My main reasoning for sharing this here is that, ultimately, I don't believe in the paranormal. However, I believe I may have run across something that I couldn't explain, and I want some input. Be back from college and waiting to get out into the woods. Be bored as fuck on a Friday night and decide to head out super early for boar hunting with a buddy of mine, JD. JD is an Eagle Scout, not prone to being spooked very easily, and I've been hunting in places ranging from deep south swamps to Alaska. We pack up our shit and leave his place around 12:30 AM, after stopping for energy drinks and beef jerky, every hunter's best friend. We end up getting out there around 2:15 AM. We'd hunted this area for boar many times in the daylight, seen tons of deer, squirrels, and even a baby fawn that fell asleep by the warmth of our car engine once. Basically, a nice place. We pull off in the gravel track, 40 miles from a town and 3 miles from a podunk gas station / deer check station. Decide not to fuck about in the woods at night. We had a mountain lion walk in our track on a previous hunting trip. Roll down windows and try to take a short nap. Instantly we're hit with this nasty, sickly sweet odour. I just brush it off. Just some wet deer. Should mean our scent won't travel far in heavy damp air. JD just looks at me and says, "That smells like death, bro. Like a cow that's been out in the sun too long." I launch into a diatribe about him being a gigantic pussy and how we should deal with it. In any case, since we didn't want to be mucking about in the woods home to mountain lions in the dead of the night, or be accused of some night hunting by some faggot ranger, we decided to go check and see if the podunk gas station is open. Surprise, JD's shitty old 4-banger won't start. Fine. Looks like it's a nap followed by hunting while we wait for some toothless mechanic to come jumpstart his car. All the while, this smell just seemed to be seeping in through the vents and the cracks in the windows. It gets to the point where I'm actively retching in the car. Enough's enough, and we decided that if something had gone and died, we'd prefer not to be stuck in a gigantic tin can right beside the corpse. We get out of the car, parked in the middle of this gravel parking area, surrounded by tall grass on the north side, and woods on all the others. A swamp was to our direct west, full of boar, deer, and critters. As I'm sitting there, loading up the magazine to my rifle, JD just keeps scanning the tree line with his eyes. To the Euro-Persian northerners, hunting in swamps is close quarters. We hunt boar with semi-automatic rifles in the south. You want a quick follow-up shot in case the 400-pound ball of muscle with 8-inch tusks decide to charge you from 25 to 30 yards out. Something's got his hackles all up. But I'm feeling fine, so I just dismiss it as faggotry. Anyway, suited up, we make our way down to the small footpath, 1 to 2 feet wide, that winds its way down into the swamp. However, reaching the tree line, we just both stop, staring into the woods for a few minutes, before either of us spoke. It was almost like shining a flashlight down a mineshaft, where the darkness sort of dissipated the light. I could feel my skin crawl, and something in the hindmost part of my mind told me just to walk right back to the centre of the clearing and wait for light. Nope. So we do what any caveman would have done in that situation. We grunted out a few excuses to preserve our manhood, and went and sat the fuck down by his car. Like fuck am I going to bumble through the woods with mountain lion, weed growers, and God knows what else at 3:15 by that point in the goddamn morning. The mood lightened, and the smell had seemed to recede a bit. So we just busied ourselves checking our rifles and talking about girls, politics, and history. We were a weird bunch. After a while, the smell started coming back, and we began to voice our concern that something that smelled fucking dead was moving around. As the smell starts growing more and more oppressive, I start hearing branches and twigs break in the undergrowth. Whatever it is, it's moving. I don't like that one bit. At this point, I'm thinking it's a mountain lion that's all covered in gore from a recent kill that's about to go full territorial mode. That wouldn't have been out of the question, but it wasn't. As I strained to hear where it was, I noticed that the snapping didn't come from the pat 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 of a 4-legged animal. It resembled the crunch crunch of a novice hunter picking his way through the undergrowth. My first thought was we either had a ranger with a sick sense of humour, a drug grower with a great sense of humour, or worse, a motherfucking serial killer. Either way, weapons were shouldered, bolts closed and loaded in chambers, and lights pointed towards where the sound was. Nothing. It's fucking nothing. Just the smell. And a slower now. Crunch, crunch. And it stops. The smell is everywhere now, and whoever it is sitting far enough back in the tree line not to be silhouetted by our lights. Smart asshole. No eyeshine either, which ruled out just about any animal other than boar, which makes enough noise to be easily noticeable. Once again, the caveman brain rears up deep within my psyche and tells me, "Fire! Fire, you idiot! Build a fire!" So what do? JD and I build a fucking fire. Throughout this whole affair, other than a few moments, we'd been mostly quiet. However, the fire gives us comfort, and whatever it is seemed to back off into the forest, if only for a while. As the fire burns hot, we start joking again, having a decent time, convincing ourselves it was only a cougar. However, there's only so much timber in a gravel clearing, and after a while, we'd have to venture out of the firelight to keep the fire going. That time came, and as the fire burned down to embers, the smell came back, more oppressive than ever, and with that smell came an almost oppressive feeling of fear. Not regular fear, but an intense guttural fear that made your muscles tense, and your stomach churn, and your eyes go wide. Every fibre of our being told us to get more wood, to keep the fire high. Only with fire would we survive the night, so we cautiously walked to the closest tree line, barely able to see from the dying light of the fire. We'd been trying to save our flashlights. I was on guard duty, as we figured out my SETME 308 semi-automatic would be a better standoff weapon than JD's small carbine. I'm tacticaling the fuck out at this point, adrenaline flowing from a profound feeling that something just isn't right. JD leans down into the undergrowth to pick up a stick, reaching into the tree line. He screams and falls backwards, while branches break right in front of him. He gets up, freaking out, dusting himself off, saying he saw something staring at him first. Sunken eyes, a thick brow ridge, ashy grey skin. Then it smiled at him. Not so much as smiled, but curled back its lips in a Cheshire grin. We're at NopeCon 1, gentlemen. I'm going to ignore the next hour of this hopscotch game of fire dying, the smell growing more intense. Him, as we call it now, drawing near, building the fire back up, and him retreating back to stay away from the firelight. However, it should be noted that this entire time, he was circling us, probing our defences, seeing if it could find a way to get up close without being seen. By the time 5 a.m. rolled around, we'd exhausted almost all of the dry firewood that wasn't within the tree line, except for the tall grass on the north side of the road in. We, of course, do what we have to do, and slowly pick our way over the tall grass. By this point, I have taped the flashlight to my rifle, and switching it on as we leave the fire to get some dry grass. As JD is filling his hands with tinder, I check my right-hand side, and look down the road. I wish I hadn't. Just as I swing my flashlight over the road, I see him for the first time. It's greyish black, with either slothing skin or matted grey fur. I honestly couldn't tell. It crossed the 10-yard wide track that seemed like instantly. Hunched over, maybe 5'5" to 6 feet tall, moving like a gorilla does. It's over. Something in my head just starts screaming. It's over. It knows you've seen it. It's not just being territorial. It's circling like a predator. It is a predator. That feeling hadn't been one of fear, but of impending predation. Somehow, the lower parts of our subconscious had known what was going on long before we did. In any case, we ran back to the fire, popped the dry grass on top and waited for the smell to recede. It didn't. It was close. Very close. And this time, it wasn't moving. So we pussied out and got in the trunk of JD's car and listened as it passed by the front of his car, back into the trees. In a burst of brilliance, I decided that we either make the 3-mile run through the dark countryside to the gas station and pray the lights are on, or we build a big fire, enough that one of the farmers or something driving the main road can see it. We end up deciding that sprinting 3 miles through dark countryside, guns on our back, could at the worst get us devoured by him or shot by a terrified farmer. So we do the next best thing. I pull a fucking small tree out of the ground. I'm not talking about a bush. I'm talking a small 8 to 9 foot tree. It's amazing what adrenaline can do for you. So much adrenaline where your facial muscles are drawn tight and your eyes dilated to being nearly black. JD's description of my face. In any case, the fire burns bright, very bright. After a while, and he retreats further into the woods. This fucking tree burned a long ass time. Eventually, maybe 30 minutes after throwing the tree in the fire, 3 lifted trucks comes barreling down the road and fly into the gravelling parking area. The first truck had an obscene amount of those off-road lights on the bull bar of the roof, which lit up the whole glade like the fucking sun. The smell almost goes away entirely. Still there, but almost imperceptible. No one gets out of the first truck. A man wearing a National Guard t-shirt and ACU pants hop out of the second truck with his hands on his hip, concealed pistol. He questions us for about 10 minutes, makes us disarm, clear our chambers, and set our rifles in JD's car. He tells us there's a burn ban, we shouldn't be out here fucking around, etc, etc. We explain our car died when we came out hunting and made that a signal fire. He just looks at us strangely at the word hunting, walks back to truck number 1, comes back, tells us not to come back there unless we have all of our ducks in a row. Truck 3 drives over and a man hops out to jumpstart our car. I shake his hand and thank him profusely, and he gives me a worried but sympathetic look. He doesn't say much but walks back to his truck and drives away. Truck 2 drives away shortly thereafter. Once we got all of our shit packed up, Truck 1's window rolls down, and a rather fat man in a polo calls me and JD over. There's no boar here, boys. If you're hunting for boar, you best be looking further down the road. At least on the other end of County Redacted. Bullshit. Tons of boar in there. But I don't say that. I'm not going to mouth off to the hillbilly militia that just saved my life. So I thank him for his advice. JD and I get back in the car, debating whether he had gone away with all the commotion. Just as soon as Fatty McLightbar had pulled out, the smell returned yet again. Nope, we're out. Hop on the gravel road, drive to the highway, drive past a few farms, and make our way towards the western border of County Redacted. We notice we're being followed by a small white Honda. Guess who's sitting in the front seat? Fatty McLightbar and hillbilly militiaman. They follow us all the way to that county, then turn around. So ends my experience. It's hard to get green text to express the emotion, the exact description of the smell, or the fucking primal fear we felt. I wrote an after-action report of sorts the morning after that hunt, but haven't been able to find it after I moved. In any case, I've debated going back with more than 2 people to hunt him, but I'd rather like to know what exactly I was dealing with. This is, of course, not touching the fact that the hillbilly militia patrol seemed to know more than they were letting on. Any ideas? Hey guys, thanks for watching, and if you have any of your own scary stories you want me to read, my email's down below, so send them over my way. And if you like this one, give it a like, hit subscribe and hit the notification bell, and check out my other videos. Bye!